What's up, everybody? This is John Odermatt, the host of Felony Friday. And before we get rolling into today's show, I want to take a quick moment to talk about coffee. That's right, coffee. The Lions of Liberty, we have partnered up with Anarcho Coffee, and we are selling our very own coffee. It's called the Morning Roar. It is a medium dark roast that has cupping notes of lemon lime, caramel, black pepper, and brown sugar. It is delicious. You can pick up some of this coffee by going to lionsofliberty.com/coffee. We have a way there on your first purchase. You can get 10% off, but if you join the Pride for $10 and up, you can actually get more than that. You can get 15% off every single order. Buy some coffee, support the Lions of Liberty, support another great libertarian company as well. Everybody wins. lionsofliberty.com/coffee.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers. Welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Of course, Felony Friday, it's the show where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system. And I do this a couple different ways. There's a couple different show formats. This week's format, I'm going to be talking to a formerly incarcerated felon, someone who's been through the system, has come out the other side, and she is going to share her experience. And it's just a fantastic conversation. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this week's episode. Before we get to that, just want to let you guys know, if this is your first time hearing the show, we get new listeners every single week. We have new people tuning in. So I want to let you guys know, Felony Friday is one show on the Lions of Liberty podcast. We have two other shows. We start every week with a show on Monday, a show hosted by Mark Claire. It's our longest running program and our flagship program. And on that program, Mark interviews leaders in the libertarian movement. He hosts roundtable discussions. Of course, now we have roundtable discussions throughout our programming. On Monday with Mark's show, on Wednesday with Brian's show, Electric Liberty Land, which is your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty. And we also have roundtable shows on Felony Friday. We had one last week where I had a Behind the Prison Walls roundtable show where I brought on prison consultant and a former prison guard. It was a great show. So be sure to check that out. If you missed it last week, just flip on back in your podcast feed and listen up. And to make sure you don't miss any of these episodes, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Overcast or wherever the heck you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube. Also, youtube.com/Lions of Liberty. You can check us out there. Today's episode, there's no video on the YouTube, but you can still listen on the YouTube if you're into that kind of crazy stuff. I know people, a lot of people wonder, why are people listening to podcasts on YouTube? The reason people do it is there's people who cannot bring their cell phones into work, from what I understand, so they listen to podcasts through YouTube. So we're happy to continue to give you guys access to this content on the YouTube. I've been rambling long enough. Let's get rolling into today's show. The show notes page is at lionsofliberty.com/FF173. Let's get it started. My guest today on Felony Friday is Sarah Panell. Sarah was recently released from prison after serving 15 years. She was serving time for felony possession of a firearm and possession of crack cocaine. She actually got out due to the First Step Act, but unfortunately, it only took about 3 weeks off of her sentence. But she's out now, and she's here to share her story. Sarah, welcome to Felony Friday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad I could be here and, get my story out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and especially so quickly after getting out. So when did you exactly get released from prison again?
I got released April 4th.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so
actually,
it's a couple weeks ago.
Today was actually the day, today is my day that I was supposed to get out.
So wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So did you have today, when you were in prison, I guess you'll never forget April 25th. How long did you know that this was supposed to be the day that you were going to get out?
I knew for about 9 months prior to.
Mm-hmm.
I had received my halfway house date shortly after I arrived in Tallahassee, Florida, at the FCI there.
Okay.
And I received my release date then. And 3 weeks ago, I got called in the case manager's office early one morning and told that I would be leaving the next week.
Was that a complete shock, or were you expecting it, or?
And no, it was a complete shock. I had no idea. I did file the paperwork requesting an earlier release on the First Step Act, but I filed so many things over the years that I was just, under the impression that it probably isn't going to happen. So I wasn't going to get myself psyched up for it. And out of the blue, they came and said, hey, you need to get your stuff ready because you'll be going home next week.
Well, glad that you're out, glad that you're home, and that you can share your story here. So let's sort of get into it. And, really the first question I like to ask my guests, just to help the audience sort of understand your background and really what you've been through, is starting really at the beginning. If you could just share just some details about your life, things like maybe where you grew up, sort of what your early life was like before you got in trouble and actually got convicted.
Okay. Well, I'm 41 years old now. I grew up in Lewisburg, Tennessee for the most part, but up until the time I was 13 or 14, my father was with a rock and roll band. He was a roadie for Lynyrd Skynyrd 38 Special. So me and my mother traveled a lot with them. I had a pretty wild upbringing. This was back in the days when the rock and rollers still did drugs and party all the time. So I came up seeing a whole lot of things in my life. I got
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what age were you? What age were you during that time period?
From the time I was probably about 2 or 3 on up.
So you're traveling on the road with a band when you're 2 or 3 years old. Do you have any memories of, like, what's your first memory of being on tour?
Oh, my first memory is being backstage at a 38 Special, and I'm pretty sure it was either Marshall Tucker or Molly Hatchet concert, and I tripped over a set of concrete steps, and I busted my eye open. I still have a scar on my face where I cracked my eye open on a forklift.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's one of my earliest memories.
Yeah, I get that would make an impression for sure. Wow, sounds painful.
Yeah. I have a lot of pictures posted. If you ever go to my Facebook page, I've got a lot of pictures posted of my dad with the band and me with the band and old pictures and things like that. So that was my life up until towards my teenage years. Then me and my father went to prison, and me and my mother settled down around Lewisburg, Tennessee. And
if you don't mind, there, can you say what your father went to prison for?
He's been to prison for multiple things.
Okay.
Multiple things throughout my life. It's been, he's a drug addict. So it's been just one thing after another.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was basically my backbone. She was definitely a mother. She guided me and taught me everything I knew about being a woman and everything I didn't want to do in my life that I ignored and did anyway. Growing up around a lot of rebellious people, I grew up to be a very rebellious child. And, it ultimately led me down that road where rebellious kids eventually end up going if you don't straighten your life out. So,
right. So what was your earliest exposure to drugs?
Oh, I don't remember a time where I ever wasn't exposed to drugs.
Yeah.
It's my whole life.
So
It's always been there.
it was just normal to you for drugs to be around.
Yeah. It was just a reality. It was just a reality. Everyday living. It was normal. It was normal for people to get up and do drugs every day, which my mother never did, but with my father, it was just a common occurrence. There's never a time that it wasn't there. I was born in 1978, so back going through the 1980s when people who did cocaine were shooting cocaine up until in the 1990s when people who did cocaine were smoking crack, and that's been his addiction my whole life.
Okay. So you're growing up in a household, you're seeing your father using drugs and your mother not using drugs, and I'm assuming your mother's steering you clear of drugs. So was part of that rebellion into that drug culture of just rebelling against your mother's wishes, do you think? Or
probably had a lot to do with it. Probably played a major role in everything I did. And I thought my dad was the coolest thing walking, and I always said I'd never do any of the things he done. And maybe ultimately it was just like, I want to see why he does what he does, so let me try this and that. And when I seen what it does to people, and I was so far into living that drug life, and it was horrible.
Yeah. Let's turn the clock forward to your arrest. Can you walk us through?
Sure.
Well, I guess first, was that your first time arrested? Had you previously been in prison before?
I have been arrested. Yes, I had. I had been through the prison system. I had 2 aggravated burglaries and 2 thefts, and I did 5 years in the state prison. Well, I did all that. Completed that whole sentence. I got out. I wasn't on any probation or parole. I was doing good. And I had been with this guy since I was about 15 years old. And I just thought he hung the moon. He tried to give me everything in the world I wanted. And he was a drug dealer. And he tried everywhere in the world to steer me away from, living the same life he did. But he was just like an all-around good guy with really fast money problems. He just had to have that fast money. And me and him were back together when I came home. And he was on federal probation, and I was free and clear. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how the feds work, but when they come to get mass amounts of people, they'll come like they have 10 people on one street living there and they want all 10 of them. They'll just come through and do a sweep and pick them all up at once. Well, somebody gave us a heads up that, hey, this is what's going on right now. So we left our home and we went to a motel.
Okay.
And someone told the feds where we were. They came in over there and they came to the room where we were at. And they came in and they found the drugs and the gun. Well, as I said, previously I was in state prison for the 2 aggravated burglaries and the 2 thefts. When it came time for my federal sentencing, they took those 2 aggravated burglaries and those 2 thefts, and they used them to make me a career offender. Now, I've had little small misdemeanor charges in my past, but there was nothing major that I'd ever done. Well, when they picked me up, they charged me as a career offender. There's a category level and a point level when you go to the feds that they use to sentence you. There's a guideline level. They put me in a category 6, which is the highest range you can get. It's the point level. I was a level 33, which is 188 to 235 months. They offered me a plea of 10 to life. So they told me the only way that they would not seek a life sentence is if I took the plea for the lower end that they offered me. I was under the impression that I was going to get 10 years when I went to court.
Mm-hmm.
Since that open range was there, the 188 to 235 months was there. The judge went back and sentenced me to 188 months. Now, the amount of drugs that we got caught with, and most people, it just blows their mind, was 8.7 grams. It wasn't, it was nothing extreme. It was a very small amount of crack cocaine. And there was a pistol. They used this small amount of crack cocaine, which without the pistol, it would have been a misdemeanor charge. They took this and put it together, put me in the category 6 as a career offender, and gave me 15 years.
So the pistol was, well, you weren't a felon at the time, right? Or were you?
Yes, I was a felon.
You were?
A felon
Okay.
then. It was after I had been to state prison.
But yeah, that's right. So felon possession of a firearm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So if you hadn't had a gun on you, you have any idea how much time you would have served just for the?
I would have served 1129 in the county jail. 11 months, 29 days.
Oh, wow. That is so insane. So 14 years for having a firearm, essentially, right?
14
That's what it comes
years
down to.
and 6 months to the day.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And, one thing we talk about a lot on this show, and it's I guess it's a little controversial, but, personally, I think that anyone, once they get out of prison, they should have their rights restored to them. Obviously, I understand that that's not what happens. You don't get your rights back when you get out of prison. You're not fully restored. But it's never made sense to me on many levels that when somebody gets out of prison, they don't have, as a felon, they don't have the right to defend their own life, number one. That's the Second Amendment right taken away. And the crazy thing is that if somebody did get out of prison and they wanted to do harm to someone else, nothing is stopping them from going and breaking the law again and obtaining a gun illegally and carrying out a crime. So it's just this whole, the law is only there to make people feel good, and all they're doing is harming the people who want to get out of prison and will follow the law and won't get a firearm, and then they can't defend themselves.
You're exactly right. I completely agree with you 100%, because if I had to defend myself, it would be humanly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And now that all of this has happened, it's just so hard, John, when you come out. I can't tell you of the struggle that it's been just to find a job. The only job I'd ever really worked was while I was in prison. Because like I said, I had the boyfriend that was a dope boy, and I never really had to. It wasn't really something that was pressed upon me. So now that I'm out, I went today to get a job. I'm have to be humble enough to be willing to work anywhere. Mm-hmm. I can't get a job at Burger King because I'm overqualified, because I worked while I was in prison as a phone operator. Okay,
I was going to ask you what you worked as. So a phone operator. Yeah. So what did that, was that, so you were coordinating the calls coming in and out for inmates?
Right.
Or?
Selling vacation packages, giving away magazines. Mm-hmm. I worked for 411. So I can't even get a part-time job at Burger King because they don't want to give anybody an opportunity who has never worked in that industry before. So now that I have this on my record, where do I start? I'm trying to rebuild. People come out here and they try to start over from the very bottom. And most people don't even have a start because they've never had to live a life that didn't involve crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sad. It's sad.
And even people who if they end up in prison, and if they aren't well versed in crime, prison is a place where you can get well versed in crime. So people will come out.
Well, because I've seen accountants, doctors, lawyers, people who work in the nursing field that now that they've made this one mistake in their life, their career is completely gone down the drain. No one will ever give them a chance again to be back in that field. So these people who are super qualified to work amazing jobs now can't get those jobs. And like I said, you can't even get a menial job.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And they call the act that got you out 3 weeks early, obviously the First Step Act. And I don't know when the next steps will come, if they will. I pray they will. But some of those steps have to be equipping people like yourself, either who have been released through the First Step Act and are already out, or people who will be released soon, and getting some sort of training in place. And personally, I'm an advocate for, private enterprise being able to come in and train people with a criminal background in order to work, just because they do it better than the government's going to do it. The government doesn't know what private companies need. The government isn't as up to speed with all the technology and everything that is being used in enterprise today. So oftentimes when you have these government programs that are implemented within prisons, they don't really do that much. They're not giving you the skills you need, but when you do return to civilian life.
And you're exactly right, because these people are in there and they've never had to come out and work in an environment where people will have to go when they're released from prison. They've had these jobs working in these prisons for so long that they have no clue what it's like in a real workforce where that is something that's going to be mandated for everyone that comes out. Mm-hmm. I'm very grateful. I have a very understanding probation officer, and she knows that I'm working. She knows that I'm trying, and she knows that I'm striving, and she sees that, and she sees the value in that. But for me as a person, I live in the house with grown people, and I'm the only one not able to provide as well. They can't know what that does to someone. I'm sorry, there's dogs in here. They can't know what that does to someone's psyche to come out and have to be cared for completely by everyone around you when you're physically able to go do everything yourself that these people do every day. Mm-hmm. But companies aren't willing to give you a chance because you're a convicted felon, because you don't qualify for the skills that these jobs require.
Yeah, it's something that it's got to change, and I don't know exactly how we get there, but we've got to figure it out. I do want to go back real quickly to, you were talking about the jobs you had while in prison, and you mentioned working for 411. 411's the call before you dig. Is that what that is?
Yes, so, but maybe you remember 10 years ago when it was you just call in and you get the phone number that you want and you actually speak to someone.
Maybe I'm thinking of 811. Is 811 call? One of them's like if you're going to be digging around your property.
Oh, yeah. I think
that must be 811.
411 is where you call for information.
So
when you want a phone number.
Okay. So how much did you get paid for that? Can you say?
Yeah, about at the most 50 cents an hour. At the most.
See, that's another thing that I think most people don't understand that's going on, or maybe they do and they're okay with it, but that is essentially slave labor, using prisoners in that form, paying 50 cents an hour, paying nothing. How do you expect someone who's locked away in prison to gain the confidence to actually feel rewarded, to feel worthwhile, to feel fulfilled for the work that they're doing, that you were doing when you were in prison, working hard, I'm sure, and here's 50 cents. Here's 50 cents. It's
all right. Here's your 50 cents. What they would normally pay somebody $14 or $15 an hour to do out here, here's your 50 cents for the day. Mm-hmm. It is slave labor, and you're absolutely right. You're hitting on 100 right there, man.
once you got out of prison, I understand the struggles that you're dealing with on finding a place to work, and you're staying with family now, I guess.
Yeah, my mother and my aunt's daughter.
That's another of the biggest struggles. If people get out and don't have family, then they're out of luck. I mean, that's just a terrible situation.
If it was somebody, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have people to come home to. And then my case manager, he wanted me to go to a homeless shelter. I said, but I'm not homeless. He said, well, we don't think, we think since your family has dogs in the house, that's going to be a problem.
What?
I said, but I'm not homeless. I'm not homeless. I'm not homeless. And
wait, because your family has dogs?
Yes, because they have dogs. They were worried that the probation officer was going to have an issue with it. And she was here this morning, but they come by randomly. She came by and did her drug test stuff, and she said it was never an issue. That was the people in the prison pushing that. So you have people in there trying to send people to homeless shelters who doesn't meet the qualifications of homeless. So they're sending people out. This is
blowing my mind. I don't know. What would be the reason why dogs would be a problem? I'm just not.
They were worried that the probation officer would have a problem with the dogs. And she said, no, not at all. It's not an issue. She said, I didn't want you to come on home confinement and you be there and me have to do more home visits. But I completely approved your home plan. I told him over and over that you were able to come home. And he still tried to press upon me that I had to go to a homeless shelter. I've never seen anything like that in my life. You're trying to make people go to homeless shelters. Those are for people who are homeless.
Yeah, that's that's a great point, because you're taking resources away from somebody who actually needs the homeless shelter, who doesn't have any place to go. So there's so many homeless people in this world. There's so many. Mm-hmm. I see it so much, especially I'm in a big city, so especially here, there's so many homeless people. Why would you try to take someone with a home and put them in that situation? That's crazy. I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your time in prison, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And 15 years in prison, that's a long time. And I'm just kind of curious, making your way through that sentence, was it a sort of a loaded question, I guess, but did it get easier over time? What sort of ways, or what sort of mindset did you use in order to work through that time you were spending in prison?
Well, John, I had to get my mind to where I didn't think about the end of the time every day. When I first went in, the only thing I could think about was getting out. When I finally truly did see that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, I focused on going day by day, making it through the day, just one day at a time, because focusing on what's going to happen 10 or 15 years from now, it would have drove me crazy. Mm-hmm. So I just had to train myself to where I wouldn't think about 10 years from now, 15 years from now, because I always held on to the hope that something's going to go through and something's going to help me. But when they put the career offender on me, it completely prevented me from being eligible for anything. I seen people come in, like I said, the drugs that I had were 8.7 grams. I seen people come in with 20, 30, 40, 50 grams, same charge as mine, but they didn't have that career offender status. I had the 2 burglaries from when I was 21 years old, from when I was a dumb kid making bad mistakes. And they put that career offender status on me, and it completely prevented me from getting any relief anywhere. That in itself was a struggle. to see so many people come and go, the revolving door of people that come and go who have worse charges than mine, people who kill people that had less time than me, people who rape people that got less time than me.
People who kill people got less time?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And I've seen it so much that I just had to finally just focus myself on only what's going to happen today, because anything else would have killed me inside.
I know it's very different, but saying going day by day, that's good advice for really any part of life, anyone going through a struggle, or even not going through a struggle, really. I think so often in this world, we get caught up in distractions, different things going on. A lot of us are attached to our cell phones, and every time we're looking at the news or at our Facebook or Instagram or whatever, we're seeing some sort of crazy thing that's happening somewhere, and that takes our attention away from living our life. Like you just said, focusing on that day, where you are right there, where your feet are. So I think that's great advice for anyone who's really just trying to make it through this life.
It really is, because just an example for out here. If I had a picnic I had to go to next weekend and I didn't know what I was going to wear, and I sit and I focused on that every day, I would be worried about next weekend all the way until next weekend got here. That's where if I just said, okay, whatever I choose to do that day, that's what I'm going to choose that day, because I can't change it today. There's nothing I can do about it right now. I just had to focus on now. The now is what's here. What happens in 5, 10 years, 2 weeks from now, there's nothing I can do to change that. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
So when you look back on your time in prison, and I know we talked about, obviously, taking it a day at a time, but outside of that, say somebody's listening to this podcast right now. Maybe it's a mother of somebody and they have a son or daughter in prison, or maybe it's somebody who is caught up in something and might be doing some prison time soon themselves. What sort of advice would you give to someone in that situation?
I would just have to truly and honestly say to, always be aware of your surroundings, be aware of who you're with and what they're doing. What the next person is doing can cost you your life. You always have to be careful, and you always have to think before you act. Fast money now is not fast money in the future. The same way things come are the same way they go. If it's coming easy, it will go just the same way. If you are in this situation and you're facing time, any amount, if you have a loved one that's facing time, the only thing that's going to get you or them through it is support and love. Never let go of your faith. If you believe in God, if you believe in Allah, if you're a Buddhist, whatever your religion is, just know that there's something bigger than you out there that can carry you through everything you're going through. If you're facing time, it will go by faster than what you think. Routine is pertinent in everything you do. Focus your mind on the future and keeping your life as much together as you can, because at any minute, it can be over. At any given time, make sure you tell your family that you love them every time you talk to them. Never fail to say those words. Most people are proud and they don't say it enough. Never be too proud to say those things, because you never know when you're here and then when you're gone, whether it be prison, whether it be death, institutions, it can happen at any time. The same way getting in trouble can happen at any time. The feds do not discriminate. Once you're in there, it's their world, and you no longer have any control over anything to do with yourself. They tell you when to use the bathroom. They tell you when to eat, when to go to sleep, where to work. It's real. It's really real. Mothers, guard your daughters. Fathers, guard your sons. leads them in the right direction, because if not, they're going to go the wrong way. We need family. We need love out here. And we just need more influences that will guide you in the right way. I hope everybody or anybody who hears this just takes it to heart and just knows that it's really, really real. And it's even more real when you come out and you have to start all the way over. It's real.
Man, there's not much I can say to follow that up. That was profound. Thank you for that.
You're welcome, John.
And just one last question, on a lighter note, I think.
Okay.
When you got out, what was the first thing that you really wanted to do when you got out? Was there a meal you were looking forward to having, a certain, a family member that you were really looking forward to seeing? Was there something that you were really, one of the first things you were able to do once you got out that really made you feel good?
I guess it was when I got off the bus and I seen my mother. When I seen her standing there with my aunt and my cousin, and they just welcomed me with open arms, and not feeling that feeling for so long. Just the love that they showered on me was mind-blowing. Being gone for so long and then just having them wrap their arms around me, next to walking out of prison and kissing the ground, that was the best thing I've probably experienced in the last 15 years of my life.
That's amazing. I'm sure the listeners listening to this right now can sort of picture that scenario playing out. And I've seen videos of countless prisoners when they get out being reunited with their families, and it always makes me so emotional because you see the pain on both sides. And I've never been to prison myself, but I've seen, and I've had a loved one on the other side, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
There's obviously there's pain, there's sacrifice on both sides. Obviously, what you went through in prison is very different from what the family members and friends and loved ones experience on the outside. But that
honestly,
is such
John, I think it's probably harder on them out here.
You think so?
I think it probably is. I know my mother has gone through hell.
I think for a mother or a father, especially for that relationship, I could see that. I could definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Sarah, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Malik King. He
absolutely, that's the man,
isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's amazing.
So did you correspond with Malik when you were in prison?
I did. We video visited. He sent cards and pictures, and he's just such an uplifting person. He's amazing. He's amazing.
He is one of the hardest, maybe the hardest working person in the criminal justice movement, and nobody knows about him. And all he does is just there's so many people that he's impacted.
He has. He's amazing.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Just give you, just another minute or so here. If anything else you want to say, or anybody you want to speak to.
All right. I want to say, I know probably nobody on the inside is going to hear this, but maybe somebody, if you have somebody inside, I give all the shout outs to everybody that's still locked behind those walls. We're fighting for you guys out here. It takes a while. It takes a village. It really does take a village. To all my sisters who are still there, I love you guys. I miss you. To everybody fighting for prison reform, for criminal injustice, keep up the fight, because we need people like you. Without people like you, nothing's ever going to change. I appreciate everything that you guys do. Malik King, you are freaking awesome, dude. Keep up the fight. If there's ever any way, you too, John, if there's ever any way you need anybody to reach out, anything, you just let me know. And I love you guys. I appreciate all that you do. And I'm here. I'm home. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm sitting here eating ribs and macaroni and cheese and salad with my mom. It's a beautiful thing. I'm here for my cousin. She had surgery today. Bless her heart. And my auntie is here. It's just an amazing life. Even the struggle is beautiful. I appreciate your time, John. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Are you tired of banging your head against the proverbial wall of politics and getting nowhere toward actually making your life more free? Are you tired of interview podcasts that have the same guests as every other libertarian interview podcast out there? Are you tired of hearing the same news stories that you can hear on the mainstream media? Then you need to listen to The Lava Flow, where we don't do politics and we don't do the major stories that exist only to divide you. We talk about news that affects you and your freedom, and we work to find solutions that can actually help you to be more free. Check us out at thelavaflow.com.
Listen to We Are Libertarians at wearelibertarians.com. My name is Chris Spangle, and I host a show where we talk about the stories you and your friends are talking about, and then we give you libertarian solutions so you sound smarter when you're talking to your friends. We're going to make you sound like a genius. Tune in now at wearelibertarians.com.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction.
And now I'm crying over you.
Want to thank Sarah Panell for coming on today's show. Man, what a story. What just incredible, just sharing from the heart at the end there. It's just Sarah, I just love her personality, and just the wisdom, just free flowing from her. That was just fantastic at the end. Inspirational stuff. If anyone out there listening today is facing going to prison or has a loved one going to prison, hopefully you heard what you needed to today, because that was, there's nothing I can add to it. So I'm not even going to try to. I'm not going to add anything else this episode. I'm just going to leave it stand. Just want to thank Sarah once again for coming on today's episode. And also, of course, thank Malik King for making this all happen. For those of you who don't know a little behind the scenes, Malik King, he's been on the show a couple times. Malik's background, he's very involved in the criminal justice reform movement. And I mean, really, it's the criminal justice communication movement. Malik King works with Amy Pova with the Can Do Foundation and really communicates and motivates and inspires and really just pours out love to individuals who are spending time in prison. And Malik is just a great guy, and he has been kind enough to really help me to find the right people who needed to come on this show and share their story, stories that really just are powerful and need to be told. And I can't really put into words how much it means to me for Malik to really just continue to reach out to and find great people to bring on the show. And then I'm just here, just like given a platform. I feel like half the time I'm so grateful that I'm able to host this show, but I feel like I'm just here hosting a show and giving people a platform. And I just want to give Malik the credit for finding such great guests. I just want to remind you guys before I let you go, I talked about at the top of the show about that we have the Morning Roar coffee. You can get that at lionsofliberty.com/coffee. Of course, one of our perks, you can get more of a discount, 15% off by joining the Lions of Liberty Pride at $10 or up. The Lions of Liberty Pride, all kinds of perks, all kinds of great stuff. But the coolest thing about the Pride is you are supporting a show where myself and Mark and Brian We don't get paid for this, man. We're doing this out of the, I don't know, maybe we're just, maybe we're nuts, but we're doing this out of the kindness of our heart to get this message out of peace and liberty and of, really fairness and of a society where there's equality under the law and people are treated right, where individuals have liberty. So that's our mission here at Lions of Liberty. If you believe in that, we have different formats, like I talked about at the top. Mark's doing more of a zeroing in on the academic side and bringing on more of the leaders in the Liberty movement. Brian's show is more culturally and current events focused. He does bring on guests from time to time, and there's great conversations on Brian's show. My show's criminal justice system. We're exposing problems with the system. We're highlighting inspirational stories within the system. This program, Lions of Liberty, has become just larger than we could ever imagine. And we would be so grateful if you would, in a small way, just $5, $10, whatever, $15 a month, if you would join us on this ride, because we're having a great time and would love for you to come along with us. So go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty and check it out. If you want to get some free stuff, get some bonus content, and jump on the Lions of Liberty Pride train. That's all I got, guys. And I'm going to sign off now. This is John Odermatt. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.